Hello. Yeah, as Phil said, my name is Max, Max St John. I'm a consultant with Nixon McInnes. We're a social consultancy based down in Brighton. We work with FTSE 350 companies, not-for-profit and public sector, and I look after our not-for-profit and public sector clients. As a consultant, very broadly, my job is about really understanding our clients' problems and helping them solve them. And what those problems might be depends on who I'm working with. I work with fundraising departments, so it might be about working out how we can maximise revenue through social media. I work with campaigns teams, so it might be about working out how we get people behind a campaign to change government legislation, and also work with comms and marketing teams, so that could be about brand awareness or internal communications. So it's a really varied job, but one that keeps me very busy, and invariably involves drinking lots of tea.
Shall I just crack on?
Yeah, please do.
Okay. Hello, I'm James Watley. I'm marketing director at a word of mouth agency called 1000 Heads. My name's not up there, but I am Watley Dude on Twitter, in case that's of any interest. I've worked in digital and social for the best part of 5 years. Before this, I did digital and social for LucasAid. Before that, I was head of digital and social for Spinvox. Before that, I was doing community management for a couple of mobile startups. Kind of fell into digital and social about mid-noughties, I guess. Always been brand side. This is my first agency job, so I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but I have experience. Cool.
Thanks, James. I've moved up here so I can let you guys share the mic without having to be the middleman on that, so knock yourselves out. Might as well get straight into the discussion then. The first myth that we've come up with, these have all been sourced via Twitter or through our experience with candidates in the recruitment space, so these are kind of real opinions that people have shared with us about social media. Here's the first one. No one over 30 works in social media.
I'm 31.
There you go.
I'm 32.
35.
This is highly classified. For the sake of guys, women of my age, okay, I have celebrated 30 a birthday long time ago. And the stress is on long. I have passed, 50 last year. Thank you.
Should I enlarge upon that a little bit?
Well, Katie.
I'm 29.
There you go.
But I'm 30 in like 2 weeks, so yeah.
I suppose there's a serious point here, which is there's quite a perception of social that it's a young person's game. I just wonder what you guys thought about that perception.
Yeah, I'll start. I mean, actually, in our team, we've got a couple of people over 40, would you believe? And it's actually quite a broad range of experience, broad range of ages, and we don't really focus on specifically getting people that are young or, looking at the youth market. So for us, it's about getting people that have got an extensive range of experience, through digital, through social, it doesn't really matter. What we find actually is people who've got some varied experience and got some life experience can come in and really give something to the offering that we've got, because we're a relatively new team. We're talking to global marketing directors, we're talking to communities, we're talking to execs and interns. It's not really about age, it's about that ability to really understand what works within social, have a real passion for it. It doesn't really matter how old you are, so that's our experience.
I find this quite intriguing, just because when I was at Spinvox and I was running the social stuff there, it drove me mad that I was the youngest person in the business, and I was, mid-20s, late 20s. Fast-moving technology, fast-moving communications business. Okay, not necessarily the social media industry, but there was a facet to the communication side of things. And every day I was kind of banging a drum and saying, we need more young people, because it's just men in suits telling other people how to use things that I know how to use, and I don't get it. So the fact that this is a myth, or the fact that this is being proposed, I'm quite happy about it, just because it means more young people are getting involved in a very exciting young industry.
So do you think there's actually a need for more young people in social and not less?
In every industry, not just ours.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I'd echo what Katie and James are saying. In our company, we range from about 21 to 52, and I tried to tot up everyone's ages last night, and I think our average age is about 33 across the company. And I think it's really about diversity and having sort of a variety of different people, and age is just one facet of that. And I think maybe it depends who your clients are. And I mean, I do get the impression that there are large agencies employing large teams of graduates to do social stuff, and maybe that's because they're trying to target young, the youth market. So, but for us, we're trying to talk to lots and lots of different audiences. So, it makes sense for us to have an equally varied kind of workforce, for want of a better word.
So the mix in my team, although I'm the only person with social media, actually it's social media in my job title, and I have a great producer who works with me. We're a small team, but the whole digital producers, they range from about 25 to 40, and over two. So I think the comment about life experience, it's it's valid for everything. You just need to understand young people if you're working in an area that is is targeted at them. But a lot of the output isn't. It's just targeted at people that are interested in the program. So obviously there's that golden advertising, 16 to 24s. If you can catch people then it's a really valuable market. But as long as people understand that, you don't have to be in it to get it. I think is my point.
You don't expect me to tell that this is true, obviously not. But I would say it's not about the age. It's more about, I think the world has gone social, and it's all about a rather approach, mindset. It's about the different ways of working. And obviously, for me, we have people in our team that are of different age, much younger than me, slightly younger than me, or of my age. And again, it doesn't matter. We complement one another. One thing is critical, and Casey mentioned, it's a passion or the love to dive into the social media world, and to have this ability to, even if you are, older, to educate and to educate your curiosity, because social media is all about engagement, curiosity, learning, education, and I think this is all about. And I also don't agree that you need to be very young, because, for example, we resonate as my company and what I'm doing in my way, we resonate with people of a different age. So it's actually, you don't need to be very young to understand the other side of the world. You need to simply understand, because and that you must engage and you must be natural. And secondly, and I also believe that the message is the same. The message hasn't changed. The only thing that has changed so far, and that's why you need to have this passion and understanding, is that your story, your message is striped to the essence, because this is social media. So it cannot go on for long. It's just, you may be limited with the whole corporate story that you have to tell about your company to 140 characters. Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers, guys. Anyone in the audience got anything to add to that? How many people in here actually work in social at the moment, by the way? So a fair split, I think. Anyone got any experiences to share? Kind of how old are your teams and the people that you work with? Sure.
I guess it depends on the audience. It's about the audience you're talking to and having an affinity with them, and affinity with whatever it is you're working with, program you're working with, or whatever. It's not necessarily about age. It's an attitude.
It is about age. I work doing strategy for clients, and one of the things I work with them about is their business goals, and they're no different from the normal, but they are the same as their business goals. They want to reach a target audience. They just happen to be wanting to reach them through a different platform. And I would beg to differ that a very, very young person who may be very keen and may be all over, might know the technology, may not know anything to do with business, and worked with big brands for years like I have. So I say, mix the two, you've got the perfect thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant, thank you, guys. We'll move on swiftly to the second myth. This was a good one. one of my colleagues told me that a candidate of hers said this to her when she was describing a social media role to her. It's stuff like the Old Spice man, right? The Old Spice guy has kind of changed the perception of social media to a degree, because its impact and the kind of scale of that campaign was so big, and social was plugged into so many bigger things that were going on. So has that had an effect on the roles that you guys do? Has that had an impact on your clients' expectations of what you can achieve through social?
I'm holding the mic, but I'm not on a horse. Sorry, that was a terrible joke. Yes and no. I mean, I heard it. I heard about it after a long time after it happened. But what it is a very, very entertaining piece of content, and it's got to be shareable in the right way. So, as simple as that, I think that's what it is. It has to be something that people A, really enjoy, and B, it's shared in the right way. And that sounds very basic, but I think that's all it is from my perspective.
I find it very good because it's something that it's close to me, because it's a brand that used to be old-fashioned, and suddenly out of the blue it became very catchy, very nice. And I think it's the clue to the key is that it's a very simple story that people relate to. They have been invited to engage, and they invited, but the message, the invitation is very personal, because you were invited that the Old Spice man would come to you, and then you may appear, in a video. And this is fantastic because they naturally wanted to be included, to be part of this story. So, and then also what was, they hit just perfect target group. They engaged the engaged. They engaged the influencer. And I think this was the key, because there were some key people that really moved the needle, and suddenly they had like 600,000 followers or whatever within. And another thing, which is again for the corporation like Procter & Gamble or mine, is very, I think this is new approach, is that within the company come up with the response within those 800, within those over almost 200 videos, yes, I'm not sure how many, but almost 200 videos within 2 days. So this, what's the key is the response. This is the change of the approach between traditional and social media. So I find it very good, and I always keep saying, when you have a new boss arriving, just show him this,
Katie and James, you guys obviously work agency side. Has this campaign and campaigns like this that are becoming kind of more common, are they changing the expectations that your clients have of what you can do for them?
Yeah, I think for an agency like us, my clients aren't necessarily social media owners, so my clients might be a head of marketing rather than a head of social media or PR or something like that. What it's done actually is made social media quite visible, and it's provided something that marketers can look at and that our clients can look at and say, okay, well, I understand about participation now. I understand how the face of marketing may have changed slightly for certain markets or for certain audiences. So it's become a conversation starter for a lot of clients, I'd say. Also, the expectation that within social now you can have a huge idea and it's not all about kind of small executions, and that has actually made some clients a bit braver and said, okay, well, an idea could have social at the heart of it. It doesn't have to start on TV. It doesn't have to start, somewhere that people aren't already engaged. So it's made a quite exciting job for us actually, and enabled us to talk to clients about things that perhaps a year ago we wouldn't have been able to talk to them. So yeah, I think visibility is a really good thing from that.
So yeah, I suppose the knock-on effect of that is you get chunkier things to work on, more exciting and interesting.
Yeah, so we're not just an execution partner, or we're not just saying, okay, we'll socialise that piece of content, or that worked on TV, let's see what happens within social. It's saying, okay, well, we want to engage people within a social environment, or we want to create an idea that is really about participation and really about engagement and having a two-way dialogue, as we all know is what can work really well within social. And it's just allowed us to have those conversations, which is always a good thing, I think.
Building entirely on what Katie said. It wasn't anything new. It's the stars were aligned and it was PR'd perfectly, and it was able to demonstrate true ROI on a world first social media marketing integrated campaign. Across ATL, TV, everything you see. It was all the way through, and it was perfectly executed and perfectly PR'd. And so when it comes to your clients, or our clients. Some of us are a bit Me Too. We want that. Give us Old Space Guy. And some of them are a bit more accepting to the idea of actually bring us in at the start of the idea, start of the creative, and we can suddenly start putting social at the heart of your ultimate execution, as it were. There we go. I'm done.
Thank you.
Thanks, James.
Next up, number 3. Yeah, pass the microphone. Social media is a separate discipline and can be handled solely by marketing teams. Oh, the microphone's landed. Max, I know you wanted to talk about this one, so go ahead.
I'm not sure really where to start with this. I think it's the easiest way to put it is it's absolutely the opposite. I think what social media has shown us is that nearly all elements of an organisation, whether that's a charity or a large multinational, need to understand the relationship that people now see with these organisations, and that affects them at a very deep level. I mean, some of the work that we do with our clients is about trying to create new ways of working and new lines of communication between divisions of a company, for instance, that have been completely siloed since that company was created. And that means that marketing is only one very, very small piece of the kind of the whole social thing, as it were. So I think if I was to put it in a nutshell, that would be it, really.
Brilliant. Anyone else?
I think that the era of the marketing director being the spokesperson of the person handling the key to the key messages to the and communication with the external world has gone. So unless you make the communication, social media working for you and communicate consistently to all the people within your company or externally, they can work for you or they can be against you. And your brand can be loved or hated. So I don't believe that it has to go, as Max said, the whole company has to be behind it. It might be to a different extent, but that, as I said, the contents needs to be the same and everybody has to be behind the contents. Otherwise, it's not working. I think this is the best way to damage the brand, to sucks the whole idea of the social media.
I think it's a bit of both, actually. So, like having a social business can integrate into every department if the company is set up to do that or if they have the desire to do that. It's also about campaign activity, so the marketers can own that. What we're seeing is actually social is getting departments to talk to each other that perhaps would never have spoken to each other, or that think that they've got completely different remits, but actually consumers don't really care who they speak to and don't really care which department owns it. So it's actually about kind of blurring those lines a little bit. Marketing teams at the moment, for a client that isn't necessarily that advanced, okay, so it sits within one unit. It's got to start somewhere. So kind of saying to a client, okay, so it's got to sit in every single department and everybody's got to know about it, have 5 owners, that's a bit like, whoa, hold on a minute, well, we don't even know what we're doing yet, don't know if it's of any value. So I think good starting point is for our clients anyway to sit it within in marketing PR, and then you look at different departments. So is it HR that has a part in that, and is it about the infrastructure within the business? So I think it's a bit of everything, and it's about what a client is capable of doing at that point and how we can prove value. So.
Nothing to add, James. I had a question actually off the back of that, which is kind of how far along in that process do you think we are? You guys kind of described the ideal scenario, which is where eventually social kind of informs every business division to a certain degree. In your experience, either on the client side or with your clients, like how far off the ideal are we?
The future's here, it's just not evenly distributed. It depends what client, depends what brand. As Katie quite rightly said, it's depends, if it's going to be social all the way through, or it's about, the HR department, or is it about care? It really does depend. The age-old example that everyone wheels out, and if you don't know this, please go and look it up immediately, because you should know this, Zappos. They did social all the way through the business. Instead of getting a laptop and a BlackBerry, you get a mobile, you get an iPhone and a Twitter account when you start working there, because every one of their employees is on Twitter, and it's social all the way through, starting from the top down to the bottom.
No, nothing to add. You summed it up perfectly. All I was going to say is Katie's absolutely right, and I may have come across as being quite glib as saying that every part of the business needs to get this. Of course, you can't just go straight in with this stuff, and you do need to start somewhere. You need to get people feeling comfortable and confident, and as Katie said, most importantly, understanding the value of it.
Yeah, no disagreement from me. Thinking about, there are obviously lots of different teams and departments. I'm not from a marketing discipline, but a cliche phrase, it's a bit like the hub and the spokes. We talk about, the wheel of social media. And it's the only way we can really move forward, because there are so many different, previous silos that have got, a part of the decision making in this. So, and it's like the whole company, everyone's company is evolving, and everybody is, well, pretty much everyone's online has a profile, so they are being social, and your employers are quite often the best advocates for your brand. So it's a good place to start to engage everybody.
Thank you. Anyone in the audience kind of work for a brand or anything like that, and have any experience of this kind of stuff? Kind of how widespread social is becoming on the client side? No? Shot in the dark? Oh, maybe? Down here?
We work... Is that working?
I think so.
We work for some major brands, and one of the problems we've got is the silos within their organisations. They're just not set up for it. And one of the exciting parts is helping them to educate themselves internally. So the upshot is there's loads of work out there in training and education into it, as well as getting the communities, consumer-facing stuff. But there needs, a lot of the time when we go in with big ideas for something that we think is consumer-facing, we have to step right back and do stuff internally first. And it's how brave the clients are, or how powerful they are to actually do that. Sometimes it throws up a whole load of problems, massive problems. So it's great opportunities out there for that. The only downside is there's a lot of people out there who can't do what they say they can do. So one of the problems we've got is cleaning up after people who've done stuff that they shouldn't have done, which is under the guise of social media, so it's difficult, but
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, brilliant, thank you. Cool. Anything else to add, guys?
All I'd say is, I think often you find the larger the organisation, the longer it takes to change. It's a bit like sort of turning around a massive oil tanker. But there are lots of cool and clever ways to kind of get people up to speed and get them confident. I mean, one of the things that we do with our clients when we're working with them on a longer-term retained basis is that even a word? I'm not sure. Bases, I'm reliably informed, is running social media steering groups. So you identify people within the organisation who are already on board and who already see the value, and you get them meeting on a regular basis to share thoughts and ideas, and gradually you bring in other people from around the organisation, and you build up that confidence and sort of a sense of empowerment in those people, and build it out from there. But I think there's, I think one way or another, this is how people communicate. So that's where it's going.
Brilliant. Myth number 4. This is from Twitter. All social media strategies are 140 characters or under. It's quite offensive, really, isn't it?
I wish.
I suppose the question here really is, how strategic does social media get? How much depth is there in the strategies that you guys are working on?
Can I start? I have the talkie stick. How strategic? In the work that I do, very strategic. We do some campaign stuff, we do some execution stuff, but a lot of the stuff that I do is at a strategic level. The idea of a social media strategy is something that some people are crying out for, and other people really... Well, I've got one client in particular who hates the idea of a social media strategy, and he's got kind of good reason for that. Is that integration, which is a big buzzword at the moment. The idea of social being integrated into everything means that social shouldn't have a strategy of its own. The fact is that at this kind of what's quite an early stage for some organisations, then they do require a social media strategy, because that's how they can get their heads around it, and that's how they can kind of demonstrate the value of social media as a thing, rather than kind of what they might see as abandoning some rather tried and trusted ways of working. So yeah, I mean, it's all about solving problems. It's all about achieving objectives, and in order to do that, you need a strategy. So it's not just about setting up Facebook pages and seeing what happens. You know, it's got to be a bit more well thought through than that.
I think, I'm very much operational, but in that, every new profile, every new page needs some kind of target. So you just need to somehow measure how well it's doing. So on that level, there's lots of micro strategies. There's lots of people who are much more senior than me who will look at strategy in general. And as Max says, it's not like a separate social media strategy. It's just that social media is a new thing. So in order for people to, I suppose, grasp it, you need some kind of document or lines to understand it and explain it and how that fits in. But it has to start with the company values and your goals and objectives. So.
I think I'm responsible in my company for the brand called PepsiCo, so it's a corporate communication. And I can't imagine that social media strategy is something different, that is standing apart from overall strategy. First, we have the corporate strategy that we call it, I mean, it's a buzzword in my company, so I will not go long to, but it's a performance with purpose. You have certain pillars, certain statements. And then you have the strategy that goes across the whole communication, across the external, across the internal employee communication. And this is very important. And the only difference is that in social media, when you are going to the social media, apply social media to your corporate brand, as I said, you need to, the contents really the message striped to the essence, because you cannot have a too long statement. So going back to the Twitter, either you just have it very limited, you weigh every single word, which means something that you can build on, or you sort of split it into some small wording, small messages, and hook it so people and engage, so people really want to come back to you and hear more. So for me, this is, you cannot have for the brand PepsiCo separate strategy for social media. Obviously, they are it's depending maybe on the brand that you may have some difference, but I think overall, if you want to be successful, you have to have a very consistent applying to all types of media. For me, social media is it's a sort of a missing link between the traditional media and the web. That's it.
It's not true. I wish it was. Make my life a lot easier.
That's all you need to know, really, isn't it?
From a wonderful perspective, strategies for us, so we run kind of global social media work for some of our clients. So a strategy can just be a framework that provides everyone with a vision that really clarifies what you're saying, like what the objectives are, and are we all on the same page, and do we all want the same thing from this strategy or this approach. But also, if you're a community manager, or if you're an exec and you're running a production assistant, and you're running around trying to get stuff done, actually it helps you to know what direction you're going in, and it helps you to deliver the stuff that you say you're going to deliver. So you're not kind of working at odds with the guy in France or someone in the US, and it just provides a nice framework for people to kind of have a common goal and to work as a team, I think. And that's the benefit that we see for our clients, is both internal and external. So it's not just us all sitting around a table and talking about the direction we want to go, and it's actually how do you deliver on those objectives.
Thank you. Right, number 5. This is quite a long one. I am human, therefore a social animal. Sounds like a poem or something. Ergo, I am perfectly placed to be a social media expert. I've got a few kind of follow-up questions to this. I suppose I'll start with the question. James, you've got the microphone. Why don't you take it? What skills do you think it takes to be a social media expert, if indeed you can be one?
If I can ignore that question for a second and address the one on the slide, and I'll come back to that one on the question.
Sure.
I've written at length about being human, and social media isn't social media, it's just about being a human being. You know, to a point, that slide's actually spot on. However, not everyone you meet in your life is a nice person. Not everyone you meet in your life is the most sociable person. Not everyone in your life likes to be hugged. Not everyone in your life likes to laugh and smile. Actually, that's not true. But some people find some things funny and some people don't find things funny. Some people are introverts, some people are extroverts. It's the combination of the good things, and there's a combination of the expertise and the combination of the training that allows people to work within the industry and have success in the industry. Working in the industry is one thing, being successful is an entirely different thing. As I said, to an extent, that could be correct, but I think it's too glib to be true.
So, what skills do you need to be in the space to work in social? What hard kind of employable skills would you look for in a new hire?
Someone asked me this yesterday. We're hiring 1,000 heads, by the way. If somebody asked me this yesterday, I'd work at 1,000 heads. And basically, what we're looking for is smart people who've got their heads screwed on, who fun, not afraid of hard work, like a laugh, and generally know what's important and what's not. I'm not going to argue with you for 3 hours about a full stop, but if you saw in your tweet earlier on today, I might have an issue with it. Do you know what I mean? It's a mixture of common sense and a willing to learn, and we're looking for account execs, etc. And it's just, it does not. Sorry, I'll stop the pitch now. I should pass it over, shouldn't I? Sorry. No. I am on commission. No, pass it over.
In terms of the skills you need, I think it depends very much on the role. I mean, what is the social media space? In our business, we have people who are specialists in research, people who are specialists in strategy, people who are specialists in PR, or what PR has become with the advent of the social web. So really, social media is only one part of it, really, and doesn't kind of define the person, define the role as such. It's about a blend of skills and experience, really.
Can I put a different question to you guys?
Okay.
What are your backgrounds and how did you get into the space? And what have the challenges been for you in making that transition?
I've got my talking stick. So I work for a large TV company. My background is making TV programs and then making websites for TV channels. So it's just like a natural path that it was the next thing that was on the cutting edge of media development. If you want to be in that space, then be prepared to change. Well, I say change jobs frequently. I've now been at Channel 4 for 4 years, and it's great. But you do get made redundant a few times if you're in a changing area. I found the useful things, but it was mainly a path through the content. I worked in comedy television for a while, and it was fantastic. So I ended up working for a comedy channel, and sort of from that I worked on other channels. And as you go through, it's been about 10 years. I've been working for broadcasters in digital, and you do lots of web chats. Then I became a communities manager. And this is just sort of extended in the last couple of years. So it's very much from the content, which is where I come from.
My background is 100% traditional marketing, and then communication, but also traditional one, rather external communication. So social media, as it is, it's a new adventure that I've dived in like 2 years ago. But again, maybe it's too strong to say dive in. I was just trying not to drown. And this is the rubber. But I would say it's, I was always with media. And if you think about the skills, I think if you are open to engage, if I need always an expert around me. Yes, I'm not an expert in social media per se. I know what I want with my brand. I want that I need to listen, that it's not anymore about me and my brand. It's more about the people outside, what they think about my brand. And I think that if I am open to engage with them in a creative way, make them inclusive to my proposition, then that's great. So I think this is all about, But I always will need around me people who are technically and not only understand maybe social media better, but but I think that I'm fully qualified for having the conversation, having engagement regarding the messaging that I want to pass to the external world.
It kind of goes back to the question about age as well. Like, our team is really mixed. Like, we've got a guy who used to be a banker. He's also a black belt in karate. You've got people that have come through the traditional digital career path. You've got people that have just been working in social for their entire careers. So I think, again, it's about just that, like James was saying, like that willingness to innovate and to push forward and to find new things, and this real hunger for knowledge, and because that's what we're trying to do, trying to push boundaries. Things are, there's this idea that we're kind of making it up as we go along, or that things are always changing. So it's about the ability to kind of adopt that way of working, rather than you need this skill or that skill. I think that's what we've learned.
So I think actually we maybe agree with this one to a degree, don't we? Because a lot of the skills that you guys have discussed are kind of human skill sets rather than technical or anything like that.
But within marketing, do you not, to be kind of social and to be human, to understand consumers and how people work, that's not about social media. That's about, if you're trying to sell to people, you want to, if you're a salesman, if you're a dealer at a car, in a car showroom, you've got to be human because you're selling and you're marketing your product. I don't think that's specifically about social media necessarily.
No, absolutely not. It's as much about marketing as anything else. And to an extent, marketing is about understanding people. It's about having a really, really good understanding of people and how to talk to them. It's just that the way in which we talk to them and the way they talk to us has changed slightly.
Yeah, in terms of, first of all, I know who wrote this one, and it's a really good, it's a great comment of somebody who's moved in a similar from content through to a more technical role in social media. But thinking about experts, when I saw this, thinking about that Malcolm Gladwell book on genius, and I think it's Outliers, and it's this thing where you have to do something for about 10,000 hours to be a genius or an expert. So I don't know who the experts are, because it basically was like 5 to 10 years, I think, of constantly working in something. But then, there are experts. There's all the people at Forrester, there's people like Clay Shirky and, Robert Scobles, that's it, who if I'm thinking, I need advice, and I need to look at some of these people who study human, like the human condition and just human behaviour. They're probably the mega experts. Maybe they're the social media geniuses, and we're practitioning experts. But there you go. That's my take.
Yeah, I try not to call myself an expert.
It's safer that way, isn't it?
Yeah. Under promise, over deliver. That's my motto.
Absolutely. I live my very life by that maxim. Myth number 6. Oh, this is a good one. No one in social cares about ROI.
I've got the talkie stick. It's bollocks. Excuse my language. If you can't demonstrate a return of something, then people won't invest in it. I think the myth around ROI and social media comes from people wanting to use it as a direct marketing channel to generate immediate financial return. And yes, sometimes you can find that social isn't the best way to achieve those sorts of end goals. However, I work with fundraising departments. Our objectives are to maximise revenue, and we are demonstrating a financial return for what we do and what they do in social media. But return is subjective, and I work for campaigning teams, and a return for them is not about financials. It's about maybe delivering legislative change, influencing government decisions. Sorry, I'm either being heckled or someone's having a fight outside. Might have to go and break it up. Sorry, get back on track. Yeah, return. So return can be many things. It depends who you're working for. So if you're working for a fundraising department or a sales team, then yes, return's going to be about demonstrating a financial return. If you're not, if you're working for a brand, then maybe it's about something different. Maybe it's about changing perceptions or brand awareness or share of voice. In terms of measurement, which is another thing that people get the knickers in a twist over around social media. I think we've always found ways of measuring things, and the web has been a great example of kind of speeding up the need for innovation around measurement. And we're seeing some really interesting changes at the moment, certainly some great conversations going on about things like social CRM. Attribution models are getting cleverer. People need to be able to understand kind of what's working for them, and we and they will find a way. And you know, that's a continuing process, just something that continually evolves. Anyone else? I think you answered it. I spent so long talking, I've answered the whole question.
No one else got anything to add there? Brilliant. Okay. Well, I've got. Sorry. Carry on.
I think that whatever you do in the company, in the corporation, it always has to be measured in one way or another. And I can totally subscribe with Max saying that there are financial ways of measuring, and it's more difficult, obviously, at the beginning when you start this. But there are other ways for the. They are quite sophisticated ways of measuring social media and the effect you have. You can go through you measure the contents, you measure the people, the volume, you can measure the engagement index, but also you measure what is the brand perception, what has the impact on the brand. So you can actually see through this methodology what sort of engagement has created the spike or the downside. And I think this is something that is done, and it's within the corporation that's, we have it. So definitely. So
no concerns from your end. Katie, I've got a question for you, from the agency side. How much do your clients kind of mirror Gosh's attitude about ROI? Are they confident about social's ROI?
I think it's a continuing question. I think it also depends on the kind of level of experience and how far we are with a particular client or what their objectives are actually. So if we're speaking to someone who's kind of more sales orientated, then they're going to want hard, fast metrics. Do they want just like one hero metric that everyone in the business can go, yeah, cool, we're benchmarking and that makes sense to me? Or actually, is it about perception or is it about polarity, or are we talking about those kind of metrics? I think it's also about how you integrate with other channels. So is your offering kind of bedded in a DM offering, actually, is it connected to a search offering? And then you've got other ways that you can measure. It's not just about directly the conversations that you're having within social media, it's also the impact that it'll have on your search visibility or your overall digital visibility. So again, like Max made a really good point. It's like, what's the R in ROI mean? And it means different things to different people, and there are different ways of measuring that regardless of what channel you're working in. But yes, we are constantly getting asked that question, and we have to be measurable and accountable, because otherwise you're spending all this money and you don't know where it's going. Marketers and salespeople just don't think like that.
Sorry, actually, it's one closing comment from my side. I think it's depending on how serious the company, the corporation is treating social media as a part of I would say, the whole media mix or the media approach. If we are investing quite substantially, that's obvious that you have to have a very clear and very strict ways of measuring the money you spend.
I'm just sitting here nodding. It's about moving the needle, whether that needle is customer care queries, whether that needle is brand perception, whether that needle is sales. Then if you can't move it, then you won't get any money to do it.
So I think it's fair to say we've got 5 people here who care about ROI.
Yes.
Good.
Thank you.
Next up, number 7. Social media has always been a part of everything that we do. I suppose this might be something that you hear from agencies or clients, really. So what do you think of that one?
I totally agree with it, actually. It has always been a part of everything we do. The scary bit, which has scared some agencies and some brands and some people, is that suddenly now people can talk back. I say now, over the past 10 years, people are talking back and finding each other and talking back with a louder voice. instead of the villages. My old boss at Spinvox used to compare it to salmon jumping up the stream. Now, bear with me for this horrific analogy. He used to say, right, if you pop a news story at the top for the BBC Worldwide or into the international press, it filters down to a national level into the local press, and eventually 3 days later we'll be talking about it in the post office or whatever you've seen on Coronation Street. That was 20 years ago. He said, now with you, Watley, he said, now what you do, you put the salmon in at the street level and they start bouncing back up, and suddenly the news people are getting the stories from the salmon at the bottom of the stream, and suddenly it's going back up. And that whole model's been flipped on its head. That's the thing that scared people. To the point of the slide behind me, it's completely true. It just hasn't been called social media. But yeah, so that's my weird analogy and my nodding of agreement to the slide. There we go.
Yes, I mean, thinking about any programme that was on Channel 4 in the last week or so, people have always been saying all those things in the pub or at their, shouting at their telly. Now they're tweeting it, and it can be very interesting to read that stream. So yeah, it's definitely something we've always done. It's just the tools are fundamentally different, and there's a different opportunity to get what you're saying to the people who are actually making it. So we can't ignore people. That sounds just so pompous. You can't afford to do that anymore. Put your fingers in your ears. And it's brilliant because that helps you make better things, because you get the feedback back, and and it's brilliantly entertaining. It is lovely. I don't mean to be too emotional about it, but to actually hear directly what people are saying about something that you and people you've worked very hard on something, and you can hear it straight away. And when somebody does make a criticism, it is listened to, and that's the only thing that's different, I think.
Do you think that immediacy of feedback, obviously it's very positive in the short term, but do you think that it's changing the kind of timeframes for the way that people communicate with their customers and with their
it
audience?
can, as I say, it can be very positive. It can also be terrifying, because there might have been something incorrect, and you have to be ready. So I don't think that's any different to having a PR strategy in the old sense of of preparing some reasons and a view and an opinion. But I think it does mean that you have to possibly be ready a bit quicker, because people want you to they want an answer now, and you have to react.
I mean, speaking about the feedback, I believe that sometimes the feedback is, or this conversation, this interaction is good for the brand, and sometimes might be difficult for me to resonate. But I always think the way that if somebody took the time to come back he wouldn't bother. Yes, he would give up, say, I don't care, I don't, But if he or she is still engaged and bothers to come back and say things about what she doesn't like about the brand that she liked, I think this is, even if by the definition feedback is not nice, for me, but it's credible. And if I do something, then I think, I keep the engagement with the brand. I keep it's working. So I say it's critical.
Okay, we're on to our last myth now. This is probably the harshest. Save the best till last. Social media won't last, nor the jobs in it. It is a fad. Now, I'd like to point out that I don't believe that for a second, and I doubt that any of you guys do. I suppose the question that I have initially is, do you hear this on a regular basis these days? Do you think that this attitude really exists anymore?
No, not in that format, but my view on it is that it won't last in its current guise. Like, it will change, it will evolve, everything evolves, it has to, right? And who knows what technology is going to be available in 10 years' time or 2 years' time. So I think, the jobs that we have now will look completely different. Will there be heads of social in all clients? Maybe there will be, or actually, social will just be, one part of everything. I'm not going to make a prediction on that, but I do believe that it will change regardless of kind of where it goes to.
No, I agree. You know, a few years ago it was about why should we do social, and now it's about how we should do social. And I think because of that kind of paradigm shift, no, it's not a paradigm shift, because of that shift in perception of what social media is and whether it's worthwhile, I think this question has kind of died along with the why. You know, people now see it's important, people can see real return of investment. If we go back to the Old Spice guy, you know, sales went through the roof. Right, it was an integrated campaign, but a lot of it was put down to the social stuff. And so if that's true, then everyone, hey, let's just sack all those people that did the Old Spice stuff, you know, forget about it.
I hope, put it this way, I've just bought my first house and I've got my first child on the way, so I hope that I hope in one way or another what I've learned is not going to be completely useless in terms of my ongoing career. No, in all seriousness, I've been in digital marketing in one form or another since 2003, so 7 years, and I started off looking after very basic websites. I've done done content editing, I've done email marketing, I've done SEO. When the web evolved and social came along, or when it started to become more mainstream, then that's where my career went. And as Katie said, as the web evolves further, as social becomes as everyday as email marketing and SEO to everybody, then I'm sure my career will change as well.
No, unless we turn the internet off or something. Which at the moment I don't think it's possible in the UK, but I think it will definitely change these maybe specific jobs in social media. It will just, you know, maybe get normalised into it's just what we do. But the actual activity, I don't think it's going away.
I agree, but if by any chance it will, I hope I will retire. I'm much older, you know. But anyway, I don't believe it because, first, I've read a very interesting research recently. It's on the trust. And actually, the people don't trust anymore the traditional source of information. Whether this is government, whether this is media, whether this is business. I mean, obviously, what was interesting for me was the business area. And even you see some decline in trust in the NGOs, where you see that people, the first three sources of verifying the information, it's about it's the social media. People may be consuming social media in a different way, but I think this is the place where they first want to engage themselves, when to resonate, when to check and verify. And I think that we will see evolving, but we will see that it will be used in a different way, and people will check different opinions. So definitely, you know, look what happens now in Africa, in Egypt, where, you know, the social media is suddenly used in completely different environment, and they are changing their lives. So I believe that this has to do with the change of our approach to the structured world that we live in, that we don't want to be passive. I think it's a difference between being passive and being active, being engaged.
I've got a bit of a follow-up question. We were talking earlier about integration, and obviously integration is a very kind of buzzword at the moment in the space, in digital and in marketing as a whole. So in terms of your jobs and the jobs of your teams, do you think there's kind of change on the horizon for what they'll be doing, you know, with more integration? Obviously people's jobs are going to be changing. How do you kind of see that playing out?
So I'll just do that one quickly. Yeah, I think my particular role probably will, you know, dissolve to a certain degree, in that, you know, it's about sharing the knowledge. So learning what's all this social media about, and then becoming, you know, the person that can tell other people. It becomes a very normal thing to not just produce a website, but also to, you know, run a Facebook page, etc. So yeah, I think that everyone's role is changing.
I mean, a lot of the work we do is about helping our clients work out how to integrate social, rather than doing it for them. And I guess that's why we're consultants. That means their roles change, or rather, some elements of their roles change, and some elements of their businesses change. But by helping them to do it, that means that we can move on to bringing them the new stuff while they're embedding kind of things like social media. So I think integration is just inevitable, really. It's just about adopting things and making them part of your kind of standard practices.
You're very agreeable today, James. Okay, so that's it as far as all of my myths go, but I wondered if we could throw it open to the floor, if anyone's got any questions, anything they'd like to ask our panel. You've got some experts up here, so make the most of it. One here.
Hi. I was just curious to know if you could share on any sort of lessons learned. I mean, that would fall into a couple parts. I mean, about cliches to sort of avoid. I'm a marketing consultant currently, and I'm trying to make the switch into social media. I have a little bit of experience working with campaigns, driving traffic to websites and whatnot, especially through Twitter. So what I'm looking at is trying to build my online profile in a way that's going to actually, bring business in as a consultant, and also integrate, just expression of myself, expression of without it being too businessy or. So I'm just looking for lessons learned. That's a lot in that question, I know. But so whatever you can grab onto, I'm sure I'll get something out of it. Thank you.
The good news is you're in a very unique opportunity right there for you personally. Sorry for everyone else in the room. So you personally right now are trying to work your way in, right? And you're looking for the opportunity to make yourself look different. I can tell you for now, after the panel session that I was on yesterday, not a single person at the moment knows properly all the way through how the ASA's new remit is going to work out with social and online marketing. If you were trying to get into social, read up on that, learn about the new kind of insurance policies needed, learn about the new legalities that are going to get involved, see how the ASA and the OFT are going to get involved, look at some of the stuff that they're doing in the US about disclosure, and be the expert in that space, and then start pitching yourself out. Because right now, people say they know it, and they really, really don't.
Did you take notes there?
I got it, yeah.
That's very thorough, thanks.
Yeah, I second that. I just think just to learn as much as you can. Like, a lot of social media a few years ago is really self-taught. So, read as much as you can. And just connect, like it's social media, use it for yourself, like connect with people. There's lots of people on Twitter that will share their knowledge, and there are lots of events like this that you can engage with a variety of different people and just get yourself out there. I think it's all learning a lesson that brands have to learn is like be yourself when you're sitting in that environment, and what is your point of difference, what is your unique selling point, and clarifying what that is and being proud of it, really. I think that's really important.
One more. We did a social media surgery session on Monday at 1,000 Heads, and it was great. People came by. I think a couple of people here came by. But one thing that kept recurring was the resources that I used to get to where I am. Chris Brogan, do you know him? If you go on chrisbrogan.com, there's a little tab that says Best Of. There's like 15 blog posts on how to write great blog posts, top 40 topics you should be thinking about today. And literally, this guy gives it away for free. Go and read up, and you just start knocking out some great stuff.
Or don't make the switch at all. If you've... Well, no, one alternative is to put it this way. I think there's a lot of value in good strategic partnerships. And certainly if we don't do something, then we will find, or we will already know someone who does, and that can be more powerful than trying to teach yourself something new. So that's just an alternative. I'm not saying don't, but maybe you want to think about using social to kind of find people that you can work with, people that you can help, and people that can help you.
There's another question down here, I think. Sorry, yeah, just the mic.
Need the talkie stick.
When you interview people for jobs that also involve social media, apart from the things you said in a few myths ago, like enthusiasm, willingness to learn, how do you actually test people for their social media skills and knowledge in a very practical way, especially if they haven't worked in social media previously?
Very quickly, I guess the obvious one is to find out if they've got a profile. Do they run a blog? Are they on Twitter? These are all very basic and rather boring, but they're quite obvious.
Yeah, I mean, there's that. Yeah, that's like number one. And then there's, Christ, we interviewed someone yesterday who didn't know what PayPal was. I'm like, really? Come on, are you joking? However, we currently undertook some work. We recently did some work with Mars, and we're working with Mars Pet Care, helping getting their grads all up on social, because none of them really use social media. They're all on Facebook, but none of them really kind of wants to talk about the brand and kind of feel the weight of that huge brand on their shoulders, and are quite concerned about whether or not they can talk about it. So we've done some work, and our presences manager, who kind of looks after all the social presences for all the global brands, kind of went in and said, right, I'm going to give you some case studies. And so if this comment appears, do you delete, ignore, or engage? And so basically set out some real-life case studies of, this is X, Y, and Z, and basically fixing people and setting people, so would you engage with this commenter? Would you engage with this person? It's a bit like the practical test, I guess, a little bit on the driving test. Thanks. No?
I've got some, in general, kind of interviewing-wise, I think, the guys kind of mentioned things like enthusiasm and engagement, because they're really the number one things people look for when they're interviewing, certainly at more junior positions. So don't get too caught up in kind of specific social skills necessarily. It's about preparing to researching the business you're actually going to see, making sure you know what they do. It's incredibly simple, but so many people screw that up. Look good, make sure that your body language is right, that you present well. You know when to shut up as well. That's a big piece of advice that we give people every day. So when they go for an interview, a lot of the time they talk way too much and actually don't do enough listening. So I think, you can prepare specifically for social media roles and you need to be plugged into that space, but on a broader level, you need to do your due diligence just as much in that as well.
I think it's to have a point of view. So if you've seen stuff that you like or you don't like, have a point of view about it. So we know kind of where you're coming from, and also, have some ideas at the ready for how you would solve specific situations or issues, and look at the clients that you may be working on, and look at the work you're actually going to be doing, and put yourself in that position rather than just kind of go in it with these kind of blank view of it.
Have some opinions about stuff as well. Don't be afraid to express, like you say, your kind of personal take on things.
Yeah, and just like a real passion for what you're going to be doing. I think is really important.
Thank you.
Cool.
This kind of just jumps on the back of that question, but something that I've always been told when going to an interview is, instead of just memorising like the Old Spice campaign or just generic ones that everybody knows about and they have been talked about, they're great but talked about to death, try and find some kind of niche ones that are really cool and something that you'd probably be the only person that would mention them that day, because also the interviewer just doesn't really want to know about Old Spice all over again. So I'm always like reading blogs, reading magazines, and remembering campaigns that I think are really cool as well.
Yeah, and that you genuinely like, so you can talk about them, and you are really excited about them, and you're not just kind of reeling off our top 20 social media campaigns. Yeah, absolutely.
Anyone else got any questions? One here, one there as well. Brilliant. I was expecting a deathly silence.
I'm currently working with students just leaving college, university. In the most junior roles you take people in for, what sort of roles would they be looking at, and what would you look for in them?
So we have an internship program, so literally just getting your hands dirty with everything. It might be researching, it might be assisting the production team. The offering that Wonderman has is a 360 full circle, whatever you want to call it, in social. So the strategy, the thinking, right through to the delivery and the production. So they would get involved, an intern would get involved at any point within that. We also take on execs that would perhaps specialise in a different in a different stream of work. So you might have a strategy exec or a community exec, or and they would really support that team. And again, what we see for the more junior levels, to just get them to learn as much as possible and to get them to be really excited and to see all the possibilities that exist. And we try and make as much as possible those roles as really quite flexible, so that they are just looking at everything and able to get involved in a lot of things. We also try, because we sit within a bigger, broader agency and a network, to actually allow them to work with the planning department or to work with the data department so they can understand the context in which social media sits and their roles would sit, so they just can start their careers with their eyes wide open.
We work at different agencies, but the agency model is very similar. Internships, account execs, it's kind of those junior roles that we'd get in through the door. Some agencies, we're just about to kick it off, do work experience as well. So it's kind of, anything, and it's from an agency perspective. If you knock on the door and say, what have you got? We'll always say, well, this is what we've got, and this is where we think you might fit. So it's kind of just a case. Sometimes it's not looking for the roles; it's looking for the companies and just banging on the door.
We're probably we're on the small side. We're boutique. There's only about 20 of us. So the more junior roles that we do have aren't necessarily specialised in any particular area. So we won't necessarily have a kind of a community exec or junior role or a strategy junior role like Katie's organisation. So what we're looking for is. It's probably not that different, just a willingness to learn, a willingness to get hands dirty, try new things. Certainly if they are involved in any way in kind of outreach or community management, then being a nice person, being someone who's relatively outgoing, someone who displays a good degree of empathy as well is very useful if they're dealing with people, real life people online for our clients. But yeah, just nice people, really. Just fun people. No one wants to work with somebody who's grumpy and boring.
Channel 4's got a great scheme with 4 Talent, and you probably know that. And I think just echoing the... I remember when I started out thinking, great, I've got this fantastic degree and and people want to know how happy you are to make tea. So, it's not... It's just the way it is, obviously showing a real interest in the subject matter, but just being nice and interested and nice to be around.
Being nice. It goes a long way.
And clever.
So particularly for probably Katie and probably you too at the end, but how, I've worked agency side, how separate is, I guess I'm talking deliberately because I've worked at similar organisations, how separate is your team? Have you got a social media team, and how separate is that if you run campaigns? You're talking about production. That sounds to me just like web campaign production stuff, and how separate is it, or how integrated is it with the rest of the organisation?
So it's a separate unit, but we have some people sitting in different teams, and we have dual roles as well in some instances, and we integrate. So we are lucky enough in certain situations to be brought into the briefing point, to be creating the brief and reviewing the creative from a wide range of people. So when it has to be, it's completely separate because we're kind of nut out some ideas, and it's it's got to get out really quickly, and it's a purely social concept or an idea or an execution or content or whatever. But when we can be, and as much as we can be, we try and be integrated. But again, it depends on the size of the project and what the requirement is, I guess. And more and more we're trying to integrate, and our clients are asking more and more for integrated social ideas that can live in a variety of different places. And sometimes we're not the specialists. If we look at social CRM as an example, we'll bring something and our CRM team will bring something. If we're looking at data and we're looking at how do you understand the consumer, we bring a bit, the data team bring a bit, a partner agency might bring something. So it's an interesting way to work, to be honest. But and we are still evolving that. It's not perfect, but it's constantly kind of developing.
It's got time for one more quick question, I think, over there.
Hi there. In terms of measuring ROI, how are you finding it with all the social comments? Ali, you must get several comments if it's a particularly controversial show, for example. Do you have someone measuring sentiment dedicated teams, or do you use the tools that are out there, and how effective do you think they are? Do you think in the future it will be dedicated teams being employed just to go trawl through the social media? it's another team, which is good. It sits in our research team. Obviously, you can look at all your insight on Facebook pages. It's incredibly useful to see how people responded to that particular post or that piece of content you put up. We use some tools. I'm not sure I'm allowed to say which ones actually, but there's some good ones out there. There's Radian 6, Buzzmetrics, but I think this space is changing so much so quickly. I remember looking at it a year ago and then 6 months ago, and I think it's another cliche, but it's a watch this space, because I don't. Sentiment is, I just have a massive question mark over, just because in the UK it just doesn't get sarcasm, so I find that really, really hard. I think it's incredibly useful when you've got a team of moderators or people who are actually going to read every single question. If you've got the opportunity to give a kind of a quality assessment, like a drop down, yes, that was this, that was that, which our kind of standard viewer inquiries teams have been doing for many years. So it's just kind of adopting that in your social networks and your own commenting tools. I hope that's helpful.
I think we have the external partner that is committed to this, and this is important because we measure across 15 markets, key markets for us across Europe. And I think for us this is very important to see what sort of message, contents resonate in each market and what has created the change. So yes, this is absolutely critical. And obviously the normal things, that you have, that we can do within the team. But it's an external partner that's doing quite a huge kind of job.
Well, I think that about wraps us up today, guys. We've run out of time. So thank you all for coming. Can you just join me in saying thanks to our panellists as well, because they were great. Thank you.